Hello there, friends, fans, family, anyone who's watching the video. I'm Timothy Trimble, author of science fiction, science fantasy, and also some computer books as well. And so, what's going on? Well, I'm a little bit behind schedule this time on putting this video together. Sorry about that, a few weeks late, primarily because of college finals and also a chest cold during finals. But hey, my first semester I managed to get a 4.0 grade average, so I'm not complaining there too much. Regarding writing status, Airborne in Spanish the draft is complete and is currently being reviewed. Airborne for German the draft is complete and is also under review by a kind lady who speaks German and English. And once the reviews are done on those and we have whatever edits are done, then it's going for distribution. So hopefully really soon. Looking forward to that. I'm very curious to see what the markets are going to do for Spanish and for German. Airstorm is in the works. Chapter 12 of the draft has been sent out to my beta readers, and I've gotten some great feedback already from some of my readers. And I'm currently working on Chapter 13 of Airstorm, so we're cranking on. So this month, this particular video, what am I going to talk about? I'm going to talk about traditional publishing versus independent publishing. I've done both, so I think I'm at a point where I can talk about the pros and the cons of both of those methods of publishing. Now, in the past, in the industry, if you were not traditionally published as an author, well, then people would go, okay, I thought you said you were an author. That has changed tremendously. Just having your work in print and being distributed and being available on a very wide market, whether it's independent or traditional publishing, that still makes you an author. And the recognition of that is now greater today, even as an independently published author, than it used to be. But I'm going to talk a little bit about both. I've done both. There are advantages and disadvantages to both of those processes. So the first example I'm going to talk about is this book here, FileMaker Pro Design and Scripting for Dummies. And I wrote this, and it was published in 2006. It's been a little while, but I'm very proud of this publication. In fact, if you go to Amazon, it's still available. It's still a recommended book on Amazon.com. Can you believe that? And I still am selling copies of this, even though it's for version 8 of FileMaker. The current version of FileMaker is 18, but people are still buying this. So maybe I should do another one. What do you think? Anyway, this was traditionally published. And for that book to be published, what was needed? Well, for beginners, an agent. I do have an agent. It's a Waterside Press in Carlsbad, California. And they represented me on a previous book that I did for Microsoft Press, Adventures in Flight Simulator. So I pitched them with an idea. I wanted to do a kind of an advanced FileMaker development book. I contacted my agent, sent her an email and says, I don't see any books like this on the market. Would you be interested in shopping that for me? So she had me write up a proposal which explained what the book would be about, a brief outline, and my background as a writer. And she shopped that around. She came back to me and said, well, I couldn't sell that idea, but the Wiley folks, Wiley Publications, is interested in a dummies guide. Would you be interested in doing that? And I went back to her. I says, well, I don't want to do something that's just bare bones basic getting started for dummies type book, but if I could add some advanced topics to the book, I would be interested. So that's why we came up with the FileMaker Pro design and scripting for dummies, because it's not just about FileMaker, but it's also about doing software design, database design and development, and also scripting, which is actually programming within FileMaker. Yeah, I'm pretty geeky, so I've been in the computer industry for quite a while. Doesn't have anything to do with science fiction. So I have an agent. Who pitches those ideas. She had me do a outline and a sample chapter of what the first chapter would look like. She sent that to the Wiley folks. They liked it and said they were interested, so they put together a contract, and then we got started. We negotiated the contract. The agent did. She came back to me with some ideas, and one of the things I was looking for, being a previously published author, was a nice upfront advance. So she negotiated that for me. So the advance consisted of a payment when I signed the contract, a payment for when the draft was completed, a payment when the proof copy was completed, and then another payment when the book went to press. So the advancement, it's not like you would think, well, I'm going to get this huge lump sum right up front for signing a contract. Doesn't work that way. They spread it out because they want to see progress. They want you to deliver the publication to them. So there was a lot involved in that. So it was broken up into 4 payments. And for transparency's sake, I'll tell you what my advance was on that. It was $10,000. And so I got that in 4 different payments through the different stages of delivering the book. Now, part of that contract negotiation also was what royalties would I get for the book. And to be honest with you, I can't remember what the royalty rate was of my return on that. I've slept since then. It's been a while. And my agent also gets a cut. She gets 15% of everything I get from the royalties. And the royalties go against the advancement first. So that money that they paid me in advance, before I get to see any royalties, those royalties have to pay off that initial advancement. So they made an investment in me as an author, but they're going to get their investment back. And that's how they do that. The time frame for doing the traditionally published book, we pitched the idea. It took about 2 to 3 months for the pitch, the contract, and then for me to actually sit down and get started. Took about 6 months for me to write the book, and that was including getting the software, the new version of software to write about, because that version hadn't been released yet. And then took another couple months to do the edits and make sure that everything looked good. Look at the artwork, approve that. The cartoons, that's what I love about the dummies guides, is the cartoons are awesome. I don't do those. They have a cartoonist who just specializes in those. We took another 2 to 4 months for it to go to print. So all in all, you're looking at roughly about 1.5 years for everything to take place, from the initial idea to the time where it actually hits the shelves. And that 1.5 years in a traditionally published book, that's pretty quick actually. Sometimes you can expect 2 years before something shows up on the shelves from the time that you originally pitched the idea, and depending upon how long it takes you to write the book. In a traditionally published book, the publisher handles the marketing, they handle the advertising, They handle the channel distribution. They decide which stores is going to go to it. That also includes they have to put the book in a catalog that gets distributed to all the book buyers. And then the book buyers decide whether or not they want copies of those books on their shelves. That process takes a while for them to go to market. So after the contract gets signed and they start getting the artwork put together, that's when they start doing these catalogs and getting those updated. And it's the catalog can go out to the book buyers way before the book is even done being written. So it's very important to meet your obligations in a traditionally published contract. The pros of going through traditional publishing is that your agent gets to handle the negotiations for you, sets the expectations for payments, and working with the publisher. You get some money up front in a traditionally published agreement, at least most publishers. Some publishers will do royalties only. They're willing to invest in you, carry your book, help you get it published, but they won't pay advances. But you do get a little bit higher of a royalty rate with some of those publishers. You get professional editing and professional artwork provided by the publisher, proofreading. They take care of all of that for you. If something needs to be edited, they send it back to you. You do the edits, get it back to them as quickly as possible so that they can go to print. What are the cons to a traditionally published approach? It takes longer. Like I said, a year and a half, 2 years before you actually see your book on a shelf. The agent and the publisher makes the decisions about the channels for distribution. And also, you don't have much control over what their decisions are and how they're going to do that, how they're going to do marketing. Also, you sign over exclusivity to the publisher in most cases. So you can't say, well, while you're selling my book here, can I take my book and sell it over here? Usually the answer is no, because they are the ones in control of that. Being traditionally published does carry a bit of prestige, even today. It's not exactly a one-to-one match with being independently published as far as prestige, but it's coming close. It's getting close. So let's talk a little bit about being independently published. Now, being independently published means you have full control, absolutely full control of what you want to do, how long it takes you to do it, how you want to do it. Once your work is completed and polished and ready, you submit it, and within days, sometimes within a day, your work is ready for print and for distribution as an ebook or for print. That's pretty cool. What that means is that if you make any changes or updates, you do your updates, you resubmit, and within a day or two, it's ready to be purchased by your readers and buyers. So that's a big advantage of being independently published. Now, an example of what I did to go through the process of learning the ropes of being independently published is that I did something to cut my teeth on it. This is Zegan's Adventures in Epsilon. And this is basically two of my Zegan's stories. Zegan is basically kind of like MacGyver in space. The first Zegan story, Zegan's Infection, I did strictly as a ebook, just to kind of get my feet wet with the ebook publishing process through Amazon. And once I did that, and I came up with another story and wrote that, I submitted it as an ebook as well. And then I decided, you know what, I'm going to give this print approach a chance as well. So I did that. I did the formatting. I hired an artist I also had an editor who did a professional edit on the book, and I learned the process of doing the formatting, page numbering, the art layout on the cover, the thickness of the book, what type of paper, what font do I want to use. And regarding font, make sure you use a font that is either in public domain or you buy. And in this case, I had to buy a font, a license for a font for the cover work. Because if you take someone's font and you don't get permission for distribution of that font on a cover, on an artwork, you can get sued. So you have an additional liability involved by being independently published and putting your work together. The next step I did is I wrote Airborne. And as far as time frames for writing a book, Airborne took me 3 years. And that's because I was working a full-time job, taking care of family, doing volunteer work, hanging with friends as well, doing a lot of things, volunteer work I mentioned. So this took 3 years for me to write. Then it took me a while to put together the formatting, and I hired an editor. I hired a cover artist to put together the artwork, and I polished it as much as I could to get it ready for print. And the end result turned out pretty good. Plus, too, there's always a little bit of trepidation, because when you make your book ready for distribution, until you get that first review, you never know what it's going to turn out to be. Fortunately, with Airborne, I'm getting between 4.9, 4.8 5-star reviews. Most of them are 5-star reviews. I'm quite proud of Airborne and what it turned into, and the recognition by the readers of that. So it turned out very well for me, and that establishes a voice for the next book, which is going to be Airstorm. Now, speaking of setting a voice for me as an author, or you as an independently published author, you got to build your market. One of the things that I started doing 3 years before Airborne was released, I started building my social networks. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, those are the 3 that I primarily focus on. And primarily Twitter. I built up a large Twitter market during those 3 years. And then when I was ready to start releasing the story, I started talking about it on Twitter. And that built up my market even more. So then when the book was ready for release, I had an established following. At that time, I believe I was at around 5,000 followers on Twitter. Now I'm hovering around 8,000, which is decent for an author to have on Twitter. I'm hovering around 1,500 on Instagram, Facebook, I can't remember. But start working on your marketing. Now, that's one of the cons of being an independently published author. You got to do your own marketing. You got to do your own social networks. If you want a store to carry your book, you need to contact them. Give them a press kit. Yes, you got to put together a press kit. If you want a speaking event at a bookstore, again, you need to present them with a press kit. Give them a copy of your book. They may be willing to do it on a consignment basis, where you give them a box of books, you do the speaking engagement, they take a portion of the sales, you get the rest, they give you back what's left over. That's kind of what I did with one of the local bookstores. The reading event was a big success. I signed a lot of books, talked with a lot of people. It was pretty cool. I really enjoyed that. But It's all you when it comes to independent publishing. You're doing the work. You are the writer. You are your own agent. You are the publisher. Now, one of the things I'm not talking about extensively here this time, I'm going to save it for a future video, is that process of going through a distributor like Amazon or Ingram Spark for distribution. That takes a bit of work, a bit of a process. So I'm going to talk a little bit, just briefly, I'm going to mention a list of resources available to you to look into if you're interested in doing your own publishing. First off, Joanna Penn, very well-known, recognized author. She writes fiction novels, but she also has a huge series of books about being an author. I recommend you go see her at thecreativepen.com. Great source of information on how to be independently published, do your own marketing, etc. Drafttodigital.com for doing a wide distribution of your ebooks. Check them out, because if you want to be on Kobo, Kindle, Apple, the Barnes and Noble Nook, just some of the international markets for ebook distribution, Draft2Digital is one of the primary outlets for that. Bookfunnel.com, if you want to give away some copies of your electronic book, your ebook, that's a good source. That's bookfunnel.com. And they also have a provision now for selling books as well. So check them out. It's a cool process of getting URLs and links that you can provide to your buyers or to your beta readers if they want to download copies for reading. Babblecube.com is who I'm using for my translation work. You can find people who do translations on Babblecube, and then you sign up, have them as a translator, you submit your English version or whatever your native tongue version is. They do the translation, and then Babblecube will handle the distribution. For distribution, as a publisher, distributor, Amazon.com, and go to Kindle Direct Publishing. And through Kindle Direct Publishing, when you sign up there as an author, that gives you the ability to not only create your electronic book, your ebook, but also a print book. It's called print on demand. It doesn't get printed until somebody orders it, but it's a very fast process. And if you need copies for your own purposes, for distribution, autographing, book signings, speaking engagements, you can order at a great discount copies of the book to be shipped to yourself. And it happens pretty quickly. One of my previous videos talks about the quality that's needed for doing independent publishing. Make sure you watch that video. It's very important because you can't just slam it together. If you do, and you put it out there for the world to see, you're going to ruin your reputation. Trust me on that. Make sure it's quality work, edited, artwork, polished, and you'll make a good reputation for yourself. Again, Airborne, currently available worldwide. Nice to say. Amazon.com for ebooks, or Apple, Barnes and Noble, Kobo, wide distribution for the ebook. For print, it's available from Amazon, or you can contact me via my website. If you want an autographed copy, I can ship just about anywhere around the world. Just about. Some places I have difficulty shipping to. My latest book, Undiscovered, again, getting some great reviews on this. It's a compilation of my short stories, and a couple of the stories in here I plan to turn into full-length novels here in the future. So that's my spiel for today. I was looking at my script. It's right over here on my other computer, so that's why I kind of get distracted there a little bit. Anyway, feel free to contact me, subscribe to the video channel, because I try to publish one of these at least once a month and talk about being an author. Sometimes I do a reading on these videos as well, and I talk about my progress. So feel free to subscribe, leave a comment, let me know what you think of the videos. Next video, I plan on talking in more detail about the distribution resources and what's involved in putting together your book for distribution, either via ingramspark.com, that's another one I failed to mention there, or amazon.com, and Barnes & Noble even has a distribution arm now as well. So thank you for watching the video. I really appreciate it, and those of you who are reading my stories and you're sending me book selfies and you're posting reviews, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and it's nice to feel the love for Airborne and the characters in the book, and I'm having a blast writing Airstorm. Hopefully I'll get it done this year. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye-bye. Now, when we, the time frame, I'm sorry, but that's going to show up in the outtakes. Outtake. Time for coffee. Thank you, Walnut Street Coffee, for the wonderful coffee mug. I'm going to come in there and write one of these days. Babel Cube for language translation.